Hannity, a household name in conservative media, may command hundreds of thousands of viewers and listeners. However, in the back of his public success lies a personal story riddled with demanding situations. His ex-wife, Jill Hannity, has in large part stayed out of the limelight, even after their 2019 divorce, but latest revelations from Rads paint a complicated photo in their existence, collectively showing that the price of fame isn't always simply professional. Her silence subsequently damaged Rads, sheds light on the emotional toll of their high-profile marriage, and the info are unexpected, if now not heartbreaking. What was, as soon as seen, as the appropriate pairing was fraught with loneliness and disillusioned as Hannity's ex-wife eventually breaks the silence on their bad marriage. The upward push of an energy couple, Hannity and Jill Hannity, first met in 1991 when Hannity became website hosting a radio show in Huntsville, Alabama. Hannity, a journalist and columnist on the time, without delay captured his attention. Hannity later admitted he had fallen for her, even earlier than meeting her, in Man or Woman Interested in Her, by an image accompanying her column. Their connection grew fast, and by 1993 they had been married from the beginning. Their dating regarded to be a collaborative partnership. Jill Hannity became more than just a supportive partner. She was deeply concerned in Hannity's work. She served as an advisor and editor, shaping his early radio indicates and TV applications. Hannity himself once cited her because the brains behind his fulfillment. Collectively, they built a creative existence targeted on circle of relatives and faith, elevating children. Sean Patrick and Mary Kelly, while Hannity's professions skyrocketed, their early years as a couple have been marked via mutual recognize and shared ambition. Jill added a level of strategic wondering and insight to Sean's growing media presence, helping him hone his messaging and hook up with his target audience. In meaningful approaches, it's miles perhaps, this degree of support from his wife that lets in Hannity's career to take off in the way it did. Her history in journalism provided a critical attitude, making sure that Sean's content material changed into no longer most effective, enticing, but additionally impactful. Without this dynamic partnership, Hannity won't be in which he is nowadays inside the media global. As Hannity transitioned from neighborhood radio to national prominence, Jill performed a key position behind the scenes, regularly appearing as a sounding board for thoughts and offering optimistic comments. Her have an impact on prolonged ended beyond professional matters, grounding him amid the pressures of a traumatic career. Pals and colleagues of the couple regularly remarked on their complementary strengths, describing them as a crew that thrived on each different support and steerage. When things were worrying, Jill become there to appease away the stresses. Whilst matters have been going nicely, she turned into by his facet, celebrating each win, regardless of how huge or small. Their non-public lifestyles too appeared idyllic to outsiders, with proficient youngsters pursuing their passions. The Hannity Rhodes household seemed to encompass the American dream. Sean's public declarations of love and appreciation for Jill further strengthened the photo of a rock-stable marriage on multiple occasions. He credited her for being the reason in the back of his fulfillment, describing her because the glue that held their family collectively to the outside international. They were a pressure to be reckoned with, a electricity couple that regarded unstoppable. However, the demands of Shaw's ever-growing profession began to weigh closely on their relationship. As his public persona grew, so did the expectations and pressures, both personal and expert, balancing the needs of a high-profile career with the desires of a circle of relatives proved to be a frightening venture, even for a couple as seemingly united as Sean and Jill. In the back of closed doorways, life changed into some distance, extra complicated than it appeared. The sacrifices made within the call of achievement, overdue nights, lengthy hours, and countless tour slowly started out to erode the bond they'd labored so difficult to build. Whilst the arena noticed a picture-ideal partnership, the fact became far strained, with cracks beginning to shape below the surface. Regardless of their first-class efforts, the stress of their differing roles and responsibilities might finally take its toll, giving them big, demanding situations beforehand. Strains below the floor, at the same time as Hannity have become a dominant determinant in American media. His career came at a price. Friends of the couple have noted Hannity's relentless work schedule as the #1 supply of strain of their marriage. Web hosting, a daily 3-hour radio show, and a top-time TV program, and coping with other expert commitments, which include writing, left him with little time for her own family. Jill Archer's role as a spouse and mom frequently took priority over her own aspirations. Regardless of her critical contributions to Hannity's career, she reportedly felt overshadowed and unappreciated. The annoying nature of Sean's paintings created an emotional distance, leaving Rhodes to control the family and their kids' wishes largely on her own. Over time, this imbalance took a toll on their dating, creating a chasm that neither ought to bridge. This chasm becomes similarly deepened by using the inherent isolation of their respective roles. Sean constantly in the highlight bore the stress of retaining his public persona whilst juggling in severe workload. Jill then again determined herself, dealing with the everyday realities of own family life with little remedy. Friends determined that the divide of their priorities, Sean's focus on expert achievement and Jill's emphasis on own family step by step, created an emotional distance among them. Furthermore, the general public nature of Sean's career meant their non-public struggles had been frequently masked by means of a cultured outside leadership sacrifice. Jill's sacrifices, giving up her personal career ambitions and adjusting to the needs of being a public determined spouse, had become a silent burden she carried, even as Sean's career flourished. Jill's contributions had been frequently overshadowed, leaving her feeling unseen and undervalued. The shortage of acknowledgement for her position in his achievement delivered to the underlying tensions, despite the fact that he regularly mentioned his love for her and even wrote an acknowledgement in his book, Let Freedom Ring, winning the warfare of liberty over liberalism for his spouse. And, youngsters, it just wasn't enough. It is rarely surprising that Jill felt undervalued after the whole lot she had finished. No person should blame her for maybe harboring a few resentment for helping to launch her husband's profession. Most effective to be left on my own communication, and a vital element of any sturdy dating, reportedly, have become every other casualty in their disturbing lives. Long hours, steady tour, and restricted time collectively meant that significant conversations frequently took a backseat to sensible topics. Sean could not entirely be blamed for his work ethic, even though he'd come from not anything, and as soon as he were given a glimpse of what he could achieve for his own family, there's been no preventing him. The unhappy irony is the people he changed into operating so hard for felt pushed away. There have been moments of connection, of route, but they became fewer and farther among as Sean's duties grew. Whilst each certainly cared deeply for each other, the cracks in their relationship began to develop wider with each passing year. The pressure of maintaining a best family picture for the general public further compounded their problems, developing an environment in which unresolved problems lingered underneath the surface. Ultimately, the relentless needs of Sean's career and the sacrifices required to help it created a dynamic in which their partnership struggled to thrive whilst they continued to offer a united front. The strain under the surface had become not possible to ignore. It turned into perhaps this desire to preserve such a polished outside that led them to split privately and maintain things quiet for a few years. The amicable split, after over decades of marriage, Sean Hannity and Jill Rhodes introduced their divorce in 2007-19. The cut-up, while stunning to fans, become reportedly amicable. The couple had been dwelling one after the other for years before the formal divorce, and each remained committed to co-parenting their children. This time apart, without pronouncing it to the arena, undoubtedly gave them time to adjust to the new dynamic. and existence away from one another, the separation allowed both to remain devoted to their youngsters, at the same time as dealing with the heartbreak that incorporates a wedding breakdown. Without speculation from the public, buddies close to the couple described their dynamic as pleasant and supportive. Even divorced Jill's brother persisted to paintings on Hannity's TV show displaying the high-quality ties among their families. At the same time as neither party revealed specific reasons for the split, the grueling demands of Hannity's profession had been often referred to because the underlying trouble. The pair's preference to remain quiet showed appreciation for one another, but left them open to speculation simply how awful had matters been between a couple who appeared so sturdy. Had Hannity pushed his family away, or had H's finally snapped underneath the burden of resentment? There was no manner to know for certain just how bad matters had gotten. They were a pair nobody could ever consider splitting up. However, it best confirmed that no person actually has any idea what's taking place in someone else's life. It regarded that no answers could be imminent from both parties concerned, that they had their careers to awareness on as well as their circle of relatives. Despite the fact that their kids were young adults themselves, it remained critical to each Hannity and RH's to nevertheless sense like a family to spare their youngsters from as an awful lot heartache as viable, and to allow them to flourish without dwelling with the scrutiny of their mother and father. Breakup Hannity's career had grown to such big proportions that it turned into no marvel. There has been big interest in their cut-up, but neither one and all them was willing to reveal what had led them so far. This labored well for shielding Hannity's profession and for protecting the circle of relatives. Jill H. Erich eventually breaks her silence. For years, Jill Rhodes maintained her privacy, opting no longer to proportion her angle on the stop of her marriage. Many those who had been close to the couple have speculated on why they trust the split passed off, but nobody ought to say for certain recently. But Jill has begun to open up approximately her studies, and it is horrific. Her revelations hint at deeper struggles than many realized. RHS Shirley spent a variety of time feeling invisible throughout her marriage. Overshadowed through Sean's annoying career and public persona. While she well known his ambition and dedication, she would have felt that her personal needs and contributions were regularly neglected. The emotional toll of being married to a media powerhouse left her feeling isolated, notwithstanding her central function of their own family. And his achievement, she perhaps puzzled whether she need to have driven so tough to launch his profession, feeling the bittersweet sting of not having her husband round tons because of what she'd made feasible. Small recommendations of what existence changed into like in a seemingly unbalanced marriage display that things had been terrible, whilst the couple, no question, loved every different. Sean couldn't let his fear of going lower, back to not anything, depart him. Developing up and close to poverty had genuinely altered his mindset, and as quickly as he saw his earning ability growing at a fast charge, there has been no way he ought to provide it. But it became also the issue that triggered him to lose them. Jill's buddies have mentioned that in the rare moments she has alluded to her marriage, she emphasizes that there was love and appreciate, but also a deep loneliness. Her sacrifices for the circle of relatives every now and then felt like nothing as compared to what Sean changed into accomplishing in his career. It created a dynamic wherein she often felt she was dwelling life on my own, even if they were collectively. The fact that without her talents and knowledge on the begin of his profession, or her willingness to give up her personal aspirations to elevate a circle of relatives Sean wouldn't be in, which he has appeared not to count those reflections, shows that the emotional toll changed into much less about any one occasion and greater about the cumulative pressure of feeling secondary to a larger mission. Observers have mentioned how Jill's quiet endurance all through the years well known shows a power of character and ability to navigate the challenges of being married to such a excessive profile parent without losing her sense of self totally. Yet, this same patience came at a cost, leaving her emotionally tired by the point their marriage came to an end. Cease her selection to remain largely silent. Approximately her studies similarly indicates the depth of her individual, even if it leaves people thinking what honestly came about. Even now, lengthy after the split, Jill's unwillingness to fully display just how terrible life changed into being married to Sean Hannity no longer best indicates her choice.